Hey everyone, we are starting our expert series. We always do it on Monday with Greg Dickerson. How you doing, sir?
Doing great. Good to be here.
Excellent. I think we got three exciting topics today. We're going to come out swinging. And I wanted to ask you this question specifically because you are the guy who buys businesses, starts businesses. You started with a truck and a toolbox. You built a big business. You sold it. So I wanted to ask you, hey, there's talk about a federal 15 million or 15 million, where there's talk of a $15 federal minimum wage. And I was curious, A, if you were looking to buy a business where this may be, may start, or if you were going to start a business, how do you consider that? Is it just an input cost? Is it a risk? I mean, how do you look at, a doubling of minimum wage in some parts of the country?
Yeah, so you can hear the dog a little bit, by the way. So, in this day and age, so compared to when I was on my run buying, scaling and exiting businesses over the last 20 years, it's been 12 or 13 of them now. That was a bigger factor, especially in service industry type businesses and, lower wage businesses. But in this day and age, minimum wage by default is almost 10 to 15 bucks an hour. I mean, you really can't get help anymore for
Mm,
less than 10 to $15 an hour. So it's kind of negligible
okay.
in most areas overall. If you're looking at manufacturing, tech, the service industry, things like that, I mean, that's pretty much what you have to pay to get your workers now, construction, things like that. Now, in some areas where there aren't as many jobs and it's a little bit different, some depressed areas, it might be a different story. But generally, if you're going to buy a business, you're not looking in those types of areas anyways, that are under distressed, where manufacturing industries closed, there's no jobs, and things like that. But in most areas that are thriving and it's booming, I mean, that's kind of a default wage anyways at this point in the game.
Okay. So not much impact in most of the countries, but again, if you are in an economically depressed area where maybe, because in some parts of the country, federal minimum wage is $7.25, I believe. So,
Right.
they're talking about, doubling it. Those areas probably doesn't help, right? I mean, I'm
It'll be
guessing.
a little different. I mean, when you start thinking about, like, Walmart, Dollar General, Walmart's come out and said they're going to increase, their the wage to 15 bucks, I think. So a lot of bigger companies have said, look, we're just going to do it anyways.
Hmm.
But, in anticipation of the change. But when you start thinking about the small local diner, the small little retail gas station, a Dollar General store, something like that, those individuals are probably maybe making 10 bucks an hour. A lot of them do start out at minimum wage, a lot of the fast food jobs. So there is speculation that it could affect some of those industries. But again, I think, even, I haven't checked lately, but I think even McDonald's and stuff like that, they're starting people at 10 bucks an hour. So there's very few areas and very few jobs that start at minimum wage. Now, if you're a server, hostess, something like that, high school kid, generally minimum wage, that's who it's going to affect the most. So it is going to add a real cost, to the bottom line for, fast food restaurants, the people that employ high schoolers that might be more apt to pay a minimum wage. But again, you're really at about 10 bucks. I don't know too many jobs in most areas that aren't starting people at least 8 to 10 bucks an hour, so and those are the types of, I'm not really interested in those types of businesses. So, the question was, hey, if I'm buying a business, how does this affect the decision? So the types of businesses and companies I look at, it's not even a factor.
Okay.
But if I'm buying a chain of restaurants, yeah, I'm certainly going to, take a look at what they're paying their people, what their average wages across the company, and try to understand the impact of that to the bottom line. But if you're a local restaurant, or a chain of restaurants, and you've got this wage increase coming, you can marginalize it with your menu price increases that, the general consumer is not going to notice.
Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take question two and work it in here. So now you're looking at a business. So federal minimum wage hike, not really a concern. That's awesome. That makes me feel good. What about when you're looking at again, buying a business or starting a business? Do you now have to consider something that can't be, beat by Amazon? Do you have to, if you were buying a new business, would you work into your business plan another shutdown, like a shutdown every fourth year? I mean, how do you take this once in a lifetime event? And then how do you take Amazon and you consider that from a business perspective?
Yeah, so you have to look at e-commerce, online retail, online services because it's only growing. It's only going to become more and more dominant. So when you're thinking on an Amazon-like proof business, you really do need to take that in consideration because it's all about convenience these days. There are some things that people still want to touch and feel and have the store experience. And as a retailer, because we're really talking about retail in that regard, you have to understand that it's an experience. That's what people are after when they walk into a store. They're looking for the experience. So when you think about business in and of itself, people are using Amazon for two reasons: price and convenience.
Hmm.
And especially in the pandemic, it's become even more critical and important. But there's always going to be people that want the retail experience, that want to get out, they want to experience the retail aspect of business. So I would, yeah, if I'm looking at buying a company, I want to make sure that we can't be put out of business because Amazon all of a sudden ramps up, has a sale, Best Buy goes completely online, something in my sector that I'm competing with just becomes, more online and the retail store traffic just becomes obsolete. So you do need to consider that. The pandemic, that's an interesting thing. Bill Gates warned about it 5, 6 years ago. Most scientists will tell you that this was coming and it's going to happen again. Is it going to be in our lifetime? Is this one going to ever go away? We still don't know what the real effects and the real outcome of this one is because we haven't beat it yet. It's changing, it's evolving. We don't know vaccines. How long are they going to last? Is it good for a few months? Is it good for a year? There's so much we don't know yet. So you definitely need to consider the risk involved in buying a business, buying a company in the face of the current health and global economic climate. So what that means is no guarantee, no personal guarantees. Do not sign and guarantee long-term leases. Do not lock yourself into long-term contracts. Make sure you've got a caveat or force majeure clause. I was going to say caveat emptor, buyer beware. Make sure you've got a force majeure clause so that you can get out of things. You've got co-tenancy clauses. So if you're signing on with an anchor retail center, if they go dark, you can get out. So you just want to protect and hedge and do not bank on long term because right now, what we do know, the one guarantee we have is nothing lasts forever.
I like that. Well, let's pivot this to a third topic because I like where we're going. Let's say you were sitting on the sidelines today, which you yeah, you're sitting on the sidelines. You're either thinking about starting a business or buying an existing business. I mean, are you at a point where you go, you know what? I need 90 more days to make that decision because I don't know. Does this thing get better? Or does it get worse again? Or are you like, no, I think I know enough. I'll stroke a check now. Where are you at in that kind of equation?
It depends on the business and the opportunity. So I'm opportunistic. So I look for, and when you're buying a business, you basically four types of revenue you're buying.
Mhm.
So you're either buying distressed turnaround situation, some sort of distress that needs turnaround. It could be any number of things. It could be financial, it could be operational, it could be marketing, whatever.
Mhm.
Then you've got, the stable evergreen kind of business that just, reoccurring revenue model like a Netflix or something like that. That's just kind of on autopilot. Then you have, your high growth type of business. And, that's one that you can exponentially scale. And that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for is opportunistic, high growth. It could be distressed, but it could have, high growth. Then you just have your steady Eddie, which is just, you just come in and it's just going to do what it does. And it just continues on. You don't really need to do anything, absentee ownership. So those are basically the four types of income streams you can buy in a business. I'm after the opportunistic, high growth. So yes, absolutely. I'm going to consider what the effects are right now and what are the potential effects moving forward and how insulated is this business against everything that's going on. And we are seeing what those sectors are, which was really interesting. I used to talk a lot about economic Armageddon proof businesses. So
Mhm.
that's when the world and the economy as we know it basically collapses.
Mhm.
We're kind of seeing that, and
Mhm.
we're kind of seeing what businesses are insulated against all that. And it's the essentials: food, clothing, shelter, fuel. Now granted, transportation and fuel demand was down due to travel and things like that, but you still got to get around. You still got to get goods to the stores. You still got to eat, educate yourself. You got to put clothes on your back. So it's all those good essential services. The one that really surprised me was healthcare. I always thought healthcare was, you know, um, insulated against any kind of an economic or health event,
Mhm.
and we saw healthcare services decline, and the business model of healthcare decline because of the pandemic. That was
Yeah.
interesting to me. I didn't think we'd ever see that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Less people going to the dentist, the chiropractor, doctors. It's interesting to
Elective
see
surgeries, cosmetic surgeries, all that kind of stuff.
all
Yeah.
that
ER
stuff.
visits. So the doc in the box model, Medicare or
Yeah.
medical express centers, those things were down. People just didn't want to go. So
Yeah.
I didn't think that would happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, this is a lot of fun. We will call this topic number 1 and we will move on to topic number 2. Thank you very much.